So Tanja is going to talk about the accessibility as well, and but a bit different side of that about the semantics of HTML, right? Right.
Yes.
So give her another round of applause, and let's start it.
Thank you, Xenia, for the warm welcome. I'm super excited to be speaking at this year's NGB. So, hi, NGB. Thank you for having me. I'm super honored. All right, let's get started. What time is it? Yes. Okay. Good time. I hope you're not bothered by the thing there, because I don't know how to get it away. Apparently, it just shows up with this. Whatever. Okay. Let's get started. We're going to talk about HTML today. Who works with HTML? The other people who didn't raise their hand, like, what do you do if you don't do HTML? What are you doing here? Okay. Yes, so HTML is hypertext markup language. It is as old as the web is. It's part of the initial work of Tim Berners-Lee at CERN in the year 1991. And, like, honestly, what is hypertext? Because nowadays we don't really think about it in that way, but back in the day it was all about documents being stored on different machines, but being linked together. And in order for them to be linked, they had to be available and reachable through the hyperlinks. So that's the hypertext part of it. And that's cool and all, but nowadays I feel it's less about like hyperlinks and more about the actual people. Well, at least I want to focus on the actual humans that consume the document, that receive the document at the end of the day. Because users and their needs are super diverse. I mean, Maria told us also already a little bit about it, but just a quick rundown. Any type of, ability is, can change. So we have people who possibly have low vision and maybe require a screen reader, who, by the way, have heard of screen readers. Who hasn't heard about screen readers? Do I need to mention it? Everybody did? Okay, so screen readers, technology, assistive software that reads up everything aloud that you see on the screen otherwise. Again, necessary for people with low vision. We have folks with low hearing, motor impairments, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's basically what accessibility is all about. So accessibility, that's, by the way, the abbreviation, in case somebody didn't know, it's A11 letters and the Y. And it's all about making the content on the web accessible to people regardless of their abilities, cognitive or physical ones. And this is why I named my talk Humanizing the Markup Language. I thought it was funny because I think Maria and I did the same trick with our titles. I guess accessibility nerds think similarly. So yeah, quick rundown. Who am I? My name is Tanja. Hello again. I'm a software engineer. I'm based in Karlsruhe, Germany. I have been nerding about accessibility since what feels like forever, but definitely back in the day where nobody gave a flying crap about it. And it's honestly super, super cool to witness the laws being developed and the attention rising and people getting actually into the topic and wanting to learn more about it. I'm currently working at Flux, where we develop developer tooling that allows you to create, manage, and share your reproducible dev environments. Like, what the hell is that? Talk to me about it. I would love to explain you what we do. Otherwise, when I'm not working, I'm gardening, climbing, organizing local Google developer group. And my current obsessions are actually Nix, also something you can talk to me about. And last week I started Stalker 2, and it's gonna be a good month, I'm gonna tell you. Yeah. Anyway, HTML. HTML is a significant part of our day-to-day life, well, at least for the people who raised their hands in the beginning. Again, like, I don't know what you're doing here if you don't work with HTML. It's a part of the holy trinity of web development, right? Maria also had a very nice comparison to it, but basically, how I viewed HTML is the base, the core, and the structure. You can add CSS to modify the visual appearance, and you can make all of sort of stuff happen if you script it with JavaScript. dynamic behavior and blah, blah, blah. Of course, today we're at an Angular conference, and the JavaScript part and all of that is Angular. But actually, it all comes down to HTML, because those upper two parts are actually optional. So you can technically create a website that works without any CSS and works without any JavaScript. And there is actually a word for it. It's called progressive enhancement. But my point is that HTML is inseparable from web. And HTML is also, well, this is the thought that I picked up around, in the realms, in the world. There's this thought that HTML is easy, and I could not disagree more, because I think it's a big misconception, and I would like to correct this thought, actually. I think bad HTML is super easy. And the reason for that is actually because I think HTML, or more so to say, the platform, is very forgiving. Because you can write any type of gibberish in your HTML, and the browser would do its best work to interpret it, make it all work, and display something. And this is kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, I think. When researching for this talk, I stumbled upon this very interesting statistic from 3 months ago. I linked the source. But basically, somebody went ahead and looked at the top 200 websites, again, 3 months ago in 2024. And apparently, all of them but one had invalid HTML on their page. So the HTML validator failed. And this kind of makes me sad. I don't know. So I want to tell you a little bit about my personal dilemma. On one hand, I love HTML, and I think it's a great technology for many reasons. Well, because, as I mentioned, it's very easy to get started with, and that's the reason why so many people start their computer science, their software engineering journey on the web. And I love it. I think it's great. It's like a good parent. It lets you try things out and have success stories. But on the other hand, in my day-to-day work, I oftentimes encounter this. And this piece of art that I'm presenting to you, I titled Steaming Pile of Divs. I tried to add the steam, but no, it didn't really look good. So it's just a pile of divs, and you have to think about the steam yourself. Anyway, so with this dilemma, I often find myself in this situation, looking at yet another maybe pull request, or I don't know, just inspecting a website on the web just for the lulz of it and questioning my life choices. So the question is, what do I do about it? My solution is I talk to you about HTML, because I want this number to go actually down, the invalid websites. I want to see more valid and semantic HTML. Oops, did I say semantic? Yes, I did, because oftentimes again, by the way, I love talking about accessibility, and sometimes I do workshops on the topic, and this is the takeaway I want every participant to really remember and take to their heart, that most accessibility issues can be fixed or prevented by just using semantic HTML, by just using proper HTML. And so semantics, that's the official term, which I'm not going to read aloud, but it's basically conveying meaning, humanly understandable meaning over the course of technology that can be transported and then understood by another human being. That's kind of the end goal. Again, look at the definition. So my personal definition and how I think about it is semantic HTML is actually pretty straightforward. It's about using the right tag, the right element, for the right task, so conveying the right meaning, in the right place in the DOM. And the last part is also very important. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about, and tell you what I know about it and what I think are the easy wins when it comes down to semantic HTML. Because one other reason, semantic HTML is also something, remember the pyramid? It's applicable to any type of JavaScript, framework or whatever you use. It's kind of the foundation. So when I usually talk to people about semantic HTML, the first thing that I'd like to talk about is the structure of a page. And it's also the first thing that most of the people think about when hearing semantic HTMLs is this type of tags. I don't know. Who uses these tags? Seen them? Great. Love it. It's awesome. Right. But a quick rundown. These things are basically markers that allow you to group the content on your page, the structure your page, and divide it in recognizable regions, so to speak. So you would have a header on the top, navigations, you would have a main content. You should only have one main content. You should also have one footer and an article and sections and blah, blah, blah. But basically, think about them as containers with some annotations that actually tell you what type of content you should expect there, what type of part of a page that is. And it's also okay to have several navigations, because this is a question that I often see, because you usually have several types of navigations, like one on the top, maybe one in the sidebar, or one in the footer. And it's fine if you just label them separately and you kind of can kind of identify, differentiate between them. And why is that important? Well, first of all, sure, structure. It's easier to work with that type of document, like as a developer. But there's also this thing called landmarks. Landmark navigation is something that assistive technology, like screen readers, and this is a screenshot taken with, of the landmark navigation in VoiceOver and the macOS built-in screen reader, that actually displays what it would look like. So this page, for instance, has 5 landmarks that have been specified. As you can see, topmost banner is the header on the top, and then you have one main content, some specific navigation, also some complementary sections, and the footer. So that's why you should structure your document properly, so that people could actually use these type of shortcuts. Because the assistive technology doesn't only show them to you, they allow you to jump to those sections. The next very low-hanging fruit is how you structure your headings. Headings are extremely important, and there are several things to remember about them. First of all, use levels. Don't be afraid of other levels. Be mindful about it, but use different levels. Create hierarchy. Try to avoid skipping levels, and my personal suggestion is, and recommendation is, have one H1 tag on each page, and I would also just stick to one. Right. Another nice feature that headings allow us in combination with assistive technology is this type of thing. It's called also heading navigation. Has anybody seen the heading navigation yet? Less hands. Good. Okay. Whew. So yes, see, headings on the web work in a similar way as headings, as chapter headings in a book. They allow to create this type of a table of content. And the assistive technology would actually allow you to, well, first of all, look at all of the headings at once. Well, not look, either look or listen to. And then also jump, skip to those specific sections that the headings describe, which is also a very nifty feature if you ask me. Another thing, the third low-hanging fruit, is actually taking care of your document. 3 seemingly easy things, very important, often forgotten. Your page needs to have a title, always and always, title tag. You should also define the language attribute. Don't leave it out. Define the language attribute on your HTML tag, but also don't leave it empty. That's not a suggestion. Put the language of the page in there. And this other point is also one of the most common issues is the order of the elements on the page. And there's very, very seemingly easy and straightforward rule, but the order that your elements appear in the HTML should correlate to the order like the reading flow, the way that they are displayed in. And it has several reasons. I'm not going to go way too deep, but basically think about if you're tabbing, if you're using a keyboard and you want to kind of follow the same reading flow when you're tabbing through the interactive elements. Or also, some people would use a screen reader to kind of, or like another way, basically listen to the content of the page, but also kind of follow along. And that's very important that those two things correlate. All right. Did I hear somebody ask, isn't it about search engine optimization, or are we talking about accessibility today? Well, yeah. The answer is both, because those optimizations are also required for search engine optimizations. Those will help the bots, the crawlers, index your page properly, and for your page to end up higher in the ranks. So yes, you will kill. Well, not let's not kill anybody today, but basically, yes, you will reach both goals with the same effort. All right. I think this is one of my probably favorite questions. So I need your help, folks. Can somebody tell me what this element is? And we're seeing like a yellow oval with learn more. Louder. Sadly not, no, but a good guess. It was also not a link in that case, but also a great guess. Image. It was not an image, but that's a good guess. Yes. Yes, we have a winner. We have a winner because, of course, it was a div. And I promised to myself that I will stop bringing this example over and over again when I don't have to deal with this type of thing in a year. So I'm talking about it in 2024. You guessed it. It's relevant. We'll see what happens next year. But basically, what you see here is a div with a class button applied and an on-click listener on it. And inside, you just see learn more. When I see this, I think, why? No. But yes, obvious reasons, one would think. So a div is not focusable at all. You cannot tab with the tab key through it. It also only works with a mouse. So you cannot, you have to use a pointy mouse or a trackpad to actually reach it. And it's not a button. It's not a link. It's not anything. So you can say, okay, good. I know accessibility. I'm an expert. I'm going to add tab index, enhance keyword accessibility, tab index 0, get it into the tab index. I'm a hacker, so I'm going to implement extensive keyboard support for this thing. Listen to key up, down, I don't know, something else maybe. And I want to enhance the accessibility of my page, so I'm going to add a roll button. I'm going to add semantics to it. All good. But as some of you here in the front already guessed, you could just use what is already implemented in the browser. In this example, it was actually a button. Well, actually, it wasn't, because some of you may recognize this thing, and this is actually from the NGBE page, and in this case, it's an anchor. But we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So, with buttons, you have focusable, functional elements that bring keyboard support baked in. And I don't know how about you, but I'm a lazy developer. I try to optimize my workflow. So that means I try to avoid as much work as possible. And this is actually how HTML helps us with it, because think about native HTML elements as code, as functionality, because yes, it is code, people developed it, people tested it, that you don't have to ship, because it is already there. It is in your browser, and somebody else took care of it. And so I love it because I have to write less code. I need to test less code. I mean, to write less tests. Of course, I love writing tests, and I'm looking forward for Rainer telling us all about it later today. But generally, it's better. Less code, less bugs, better maintainability, profit. So I mentioned that this is actually from the NGB page, and we're laughing. Is it an anchor tag? Is it a button? There's a very easy rule of thumb that is also like a question that some people ask. Anyway, you can use both. It's valid, but use buttons only if the thing represents an action, like you can call it a side effect. So something that happens dynamic, maybe, I don't know, something pops up, or you make things appear anyway, or you fire an AJAX call. Somebody say AJAX anymore? Anyway, you fire a request. And you can also use it as implement it as an anchor tag if it stands for links, if it resembles a change in the navigation state. So both things are valid. CSS is your friend. Go wild, but just don't use an image because it doesn't have any text content. So yeah, don't make clickable images. But otherwise, yes, stick to these two things. Actually, this year I have encountered a clickable paragraph, I think. So yes, just these two things, please. All right. I've been mentioning divs and spans a little bit today. And I want to make one thing clear. They're not bad. They're not, terrible elements that developers shouldn't use. They are very valid, and they have their own special semantics. And their semantics is, well, there is none. These are elements that are super special because they have zero semantics. These are very helpful because these are actually containers. They're there for you to group your other elements in order to maybe apply CSS or, do whatever. Basically, mostly layouting, yeah. One fine difference, and I guess probably people can already guess, but I'm still going to mention it. Div is a container, covered that, and a span is same, but different because it's an inline container. And that's the main difference between these two. So use divs when you need a block container, and use span if you want to group things in an inline context. All right. You cannot talk about, well, I think you shouldn't talk about semantics and accessibility and HTML and not talk about ARIA. I'm not saying you need ARIA, but I want to know what it is. And ARIA is, by the way, Maria already mentioned it. ARIA is a sub-spec, is a specification that kind of defines a little bit more attributes and some concepts for HTML. But ARIA operates only on the level of assistive technology. Okay? That's a very important part. And that sounds like advanced stuff, doesn't it? If we're optimizing for assistive technology. And this is why I say you don't really need it. You most likely really don't need it. But I still want you to, know what to know about it. So I suggest and I recommend you referring to this ARIA Authoring Practices Guide and reading, well, first of all, this Read Me First article. And it gives you all the context that you need. And it's actually a great resource to learn in general more about semantics on the web, the patterns that are applied. Yeah, a very helpful resource. All right. So I think that's the point that I was trying to make today, that semantic HTML equals meaningful HTML. It's actually a way how you can make your application accessible, or the meaning that you put into your content accessible. Accessible to all of your users, whatever user they are, whatever abilities they have. Also accessible for your developers, because again, developers are those people who inherit your code and who also need to understand what you're meaning. And it's very helpful if you can actually tell what the thing is supposed to be. And again, just save them time. Use the work of other people. And also, semantic HTML makes your content accessible for machines, bots, basically. So think about search engine optimization, crawler, or all the other bots that are online, basically. And so I wanted to make this point once again, and I'm very glad that I'm able to tell this audience this again. I strongly, strongly believe, and I want as many people to know this as well, that semantic HTML is actually the foundation of any good web experience, of any good web application. It doesn't matter which version you're running of any framework. It doesn't matter how many awesome new features you use, because if you write crappy, inaccessible HTML, even with the finest newest features, you will not get a good result. And so I would suggest to actually invest in learning HTML, because this is one of the skills. This is, I think, the core skill that a web developer can possess. And so learn it. I would just suggest sometimes, if you have nothing to do, or if you're intended, just go ahead. I know MDN. Probably everybody knows MDN. I know. Yeah, just read about elements. It's fun. You always discover something new. But also, reading is not really fun learning. And this is why I recommend that you just try out, test your knowledge, put your knowledge to the test. Because I bet there were people who are like, well, Tanja, I am a web developer with X years of experience. I know HTML. Why are you telling me this about it? All right, prove it. Prove it. Go ahead. I've linked two games that basically have the same goal. They let you test how many HTML tags you actually know. One puts you under time pressure, and the other, so the left one that I linked, you can scan the QR code, puts you under pressure. You only have 5 minutes, and the other one gives you a little bit more time in a very retro design. So yes, just a question. Does anybody know how many HTML tags there are?
There is a number on the screen. Yes.
Yes, that's very attentive. But actually, thank you, that's the point that I wanted to make. Well, actually, I've checked, and this is a thing that is very difficult to check, but the internet, I will quote it somewhere, I will link the quote, but the internet agrees that there are 112 HTML tags. And I believe this person on the right added something with SVG and something else. But basically, that is technically, according to some specs, but basically. Anyway, if you know 114, you're good. If you can make it to 50, you're great. Everything about like 70 and more, you're a wizard. So great, congrats. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to compete like in HTML knowledge, I'm glad to, because I haven't practiced. I'm honest. You'll probably beat me. Anyway, that's it with my talk. Again, thank you so much for having me. I hope it was an interesting and interactive session. Yeah, find me. Let's chat. Yeah. Thanks.